Oh, we have one faithful person here right now as we speak, gentlemen. It seems like it doesn't seem like so far in this little experiment that I've been on. Oh, still presenting a Britisher. Let me stop that. In this little experience that I've been on, I found that we have run into some pretty loyal, cool people. The one thing that it's hard for me to justify using the word like fans. I don't know about you boys, but I don't consider anyone that watches us fans. I even seen that. Take somebody like Rush Limbaugh. He had a problem with that. He was the first one to say, no, don't thank me. Don't tell me I'm great. And I know he's a pompous windbag. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to go on the route of rock and roll stars got it harder than coal miners or anything. But he was the first one that I know of to come out and say, no, don't say thanks and blow a bunch of sunshine up there. Just say ditto, because I feel the same way about you as you feel about me. And to this day, maybe it is because he has a huge ego. To this day, I know that Mr. Limbaugh he doesn't dig it when people come up and say, oh, I'm a huge fan. He likes for them to say, well, I'm a listener. I'm a contributor to your program, and that I listen, and sometimes I call and I'm a part of it. And so I don't know. I guess at the risk of sounding pompous in this way, I feel like we, the same kind of thing is happening here. We have a few people that are not fans, but peers. I think that might be the best word. Peers that show up to have this intracontinental, I don't know. This conversation that spans continents. How's that for trying to be smart? What's up, boys, my British brothers?
I think one can't really refer to them as fans. I think it's very much a matter of people who, on a regular basis, suffer our presence, just because they wish to kind of see just how low we will go this time. Mr. Common Sense?
Well, I can't really talk to anybody about having fans. I've got 52 people that loyally support me, which I'm very happy for. But I don't get people that come along very, very often. But I've got about 3 or 4 that come around besides you two as well. And apart from that, I'm very, very happy with just the 4 people.
That's how we all started out. But I will say this, you've been part of this solid now, seems like for a month or more. And so on a normal days, 25, 30 people come by and see you, brother, listen to what you got to say. So, I mean, that's, yeah, we all have our respective channels, but Lord knows I don't want to sit here and compare myself to the British's channel. It'll just make me feel bad. Yes.
Well, now you know how I feel on a daily basis when I'm talking to either of you two.
Well, and as much as I love the Britisher, with the Brits like going through the, like what can I do to make my channel better? And I envision someone that has like $30 million in the bank, and I'm sitting there, at the bar with them, and they're looking at me saying, "Ah, man, I just don't know, mate. My new yacht, I got to get it repainted, and it's going to cost me a fortune."
Yeah. I think I'd probably tell you to shut up.
Yeah, he's trying to find something that he can heave far enough to make it all the way over here and hit me in the head.
Yes. All those glamour model girlfriends of mine are spending a fortune on high heels. It's, what can I say? It's it's across the bear.
Well, I think I believe the expression is rich man's problems. But I'm only teasing you.
Well, I think when it comes to rich men's problems, I think.
Hey! I've got a question first.
Go ahead.
Why is it rich men's problem and not rich people's problems?
Oh, sexist patriarchy. Go ahead.
Okay, right. Throw him out. Press that button, Ogre. No, this is precisely in a way hooking into what I was just about to say, because when you say rich men's problems, and I will just be stubborn, and just because you said so, I will say rich men's problems. That is very much in a way what much of this entire skeptic revolt on YouTube really is about. Because most of the things that we are seeing entire movements arise over these days, that black people are not getting enough Oscars, and things like that. I'm sorry, but when people actually still had to be significantly worried about where their next meal was going to come from, these were not issues.
Right.
So in a way, a great deal of the complaining that is going on about some of the most obscure things imaginable these days it is entirely rich men's problems. Because I'm sorry, if people really had significant things to worry about, these things would not figure. I mean, I cannot really imagine, you know, there would have been too many people in the London Underground hearing the bombs falling in the Blitz, whilst at the same time having debates with their immediate neighbours in the tunnel about gender pronouns.
Yeah, or whether or not they should say pet or love.
Yes, exactly. You just sort of feel, yeah, sort of one's priorities get focused rather dramatically when one has real problems. And I really think, yeah, that this is more than likely a sign of a decadent society. Because why on earth would one... It's almost as if one is dreaming up problems, because the human condition more than likely requires us to have problems to solve. And if we don't have any significant problems left, then we must make up some in order to effectively have something to contest, to be worried about, to combat.
So that's why everybody hates Trump.
Well, to a certain extent, yes, that would also play into it, yes.
You're in a rare good mood today, Common Sense. I suppose I was in a good mood, but you're in a rare one today. I'm loving it.
But no, it's I could imagine that Jordan Peterson could more than likely, you know, write reams on this, that to a certain extent we require certain troubles. I think he has made some speeches that are on YouTube about if you would actually create a paradise for people to live in, they could not be happy, because we are not meant to be happy in that respect. We are meant to have problems and seek to solve them. If you just basically take everything away and just basically say, okay, there you go, here's food, here's shelter, here's warmth, here's everything, now be happy onto eternity. You would more than likely within a few days have a major uprising on your hands.
Yeah, because everybody would be bored. It's like what we've touched on many times before when we were talking about the robots and everything else like that. It's the idea of communism, the fact that people would be happy and content doing no work. It is, in a way, it's a case of people actually having the sense of purpose. If you take a sense of purpose away from people, that's when they try and find it in places where they can't find it. As in, we need to rebel against history because everybody in history was racist. Or we need to tear statues down because the statues are racist. Or we need to change the education system because the left are retarded.
Well, of course.
That type of stuff.
Yeah. It also ties into, of course, identity. Because a sense of purpose is very much connected with your identity. What you do for a living, what you know, what your role is in life is very much tied up with your identity.
I don't want to cut you off, but I do just want to make this point quickly. It's funny you say that. Whenever you get first introduced to somebody, what's the first and the second thing that you ask? You go, how are you? What do you do?
What do you do?
It's
that
funny,
question, what do you do? And the question, what do you do directly? Here's the thing, Britt, this was in my mind too. So a certain time ago, they started telling us that was bad. You know, that my old man wasn't always right when he would say, I'm a mechanic. I'm a transmission mechanic. That, you know, maybe there was something wrong with that he should see himself as a father and all these things. But as especially a man, and I don't care all these gender roles. I just watched this show called Ozark, and I'll maybe get into that later, but not right now, because it's killing me what they're doing. I never understood when my parents would say, all this stuff they put on TV nowadays, it makes us uncomfortable. It's so strange. They're trying to change things. And I was young, so of course I didn't see it. And I would say, I don't understand. They said, you will. And now I watch what's supposed to be a 15-year-old girl in this show get talked into going and stealing a boat with these kids in any way. She doesn't know that they stole it. She thinks she's just going wakeboard on this guy's rich dad's boat, but he's actually just trailer trash from across the lake. And when she sees him again, she goes up there and gives him an overhand right, which of course knocks the dude out. And 43 strange years of being around party animals and the craziest lot that I know, your very avid churchgoer. I don't want to say Christian, whatever. You're church going kind of people. They're kind of nuts, man. I've seen more fights and them kind of things than I have at bars. But anyway, I see it. I mean, when I see these gender roles changing, when I see them trying to stuff sexuality down my throat, like they show these two guys kissing in this thing. Look, boys, can I ask y'all something? If the three of us lot, we're out in some town in England, y'all are showing me out and showing me what a good time is. We just get some fish and chips, right? We go down on the water. Maybe we're in Hartlepool somewhere. We go down on the water and we're looking at the water. And then there's kids over here to our left, 20 feet away, boy and girl now. I don't care if they're kids, hell, they're our age. Who cares? And they're just making out. How do we collectively feel? Is that okay? Do we just like look at the water and like no big deal?
Do you want me to go first, British, or do you want me to take this one first? For me, on that point, as long as it's just kind of making out, like there's no losing of hands or anything else like that, then personally I don't really have a problem with it, especially as they're already down in the water and out of the way.
No. I mean, and let me be specific. We're on and to me it wouldn't matter if they're in sight, but I was trying to make the point that say we were all on benches and maybe even 2 benches down, there's these people, different genders, making out in public there. So for you, one vote is, no big deal.
No, I wouldn't have a big problem with that either.
No big deal. Okay, I'm not going to say that I would walk down there and stop it, boys. But as soon as I noticed that, what would happen is I would automatically have to uncomfortably continue to avert my gaze because I don't want to see, and maybe it's an American thing. I don't know.
No, I don't think it's an American thing at all. I think it's quite a natural thing that you don't want to be seen to be a voyeur. So I understand why you would look away. I mean, I would perhaps look at it and grin and then just look away. I wouldn't spend my time. I wouldn't spend my time observing them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, let me just be blunt with my point then. Let me be very blunt. I would feel the same way about anybody's making out in public. It would not make one little iota of a difference if it was a boy and a boy or a girl and a girl or a girl and a boy. When I see that, I'm like, the old term is get a room.
This is where I differ from you. I think if we're down at the seafront, as the common sense guy said, you know, they're kind of out of the way. It's not as if they're in the middle of the town centre doing it. But, and I know I'm lining myself up here to be called a complete bigot. Yes, if it's 2 blokes going at it or two girls, yeah, I think we're in a different territory here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, about
you know, I mean, I would feel deeply uncomfortable for that to be going on within 10 yards of me.
See, I wouldn't be uncomfortable, as I said. It depends on what they're doing. If they're getting so enamorous where they're actually losing fingers and losing hands and doing different things with body parts while they're making out, then fair enough. Then, yeah, I will get annoyed and I'll probably say, "Oi, not in public, go get a room somewhere." But if they're just literally making out and cuddling, I don't have a problem with that, whatever sex it is. As long as there's no kids or anything else like that around. If it's done at night, well, there's nobody around, I don't have a problem with it.
I'll tell you all a funny little story that I may have told before. I hope not. But it must have been about 1999. And Mrs. Ogre and I were walking from San Diego, California, down to Tijuana, Mexico, to go to La Plaza Rio and then to enjoy Rosarito Beach. And we were just joking like husband and wife do. We're going across the footbridge, and you can tell when you get to Mexico. It, honest to goodness, is like a wall where it smells bad. I mean, it's just, you can tell when you get to Mexico, and it's not a incremental thing. I'm telling you, and you have to walk across the border to know what I'm talking about.
Ogre to sneak the word wall in when mentioning Mexico, but please continue.
So you hit the wall. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. But as we're going across and making jokes, and we're talking about the stinky, and you could see people. I mean, God bless them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not heartless, but it still is striking to someone from the first world to see people washing their clothes down in what they call a river, but it looks like flowing sewage to me and smells really horrible, but they are washing their clothes in there because they have nothing else. And so we're talking about that. And then for some reason or another, the topic of homosexuality came up. And I was like, we're in Mexico now. There ain't no such thing as a gay Mexican. And Mrs. Ogre, of course, like, oh yeah, of course there's gay, but like, and I'm just, don't believe anything I'm saying, you know, in my mind, we're just bantering. I'm like, no. Boys, we got into this place. There's this Jose Margaritas. I would always stop there and have a couple cervezas before we started walking down Revolution Avenue and stuff. Right there, man. As soon as we came into this square was this great, big, fat Mexican guy with a fishnet shirt on, and he had this little Mexican dude with him just right in public, man. I mean, they're not humping, but they're making out steadily, too. I mean, the whole time, because I was like, oh shit! There's still, yeah. The whole time it took us to walk across. Anyway, there you go. So yeah, I was holding back a little bit because I also don't want to be called a bigot. I want to be called a homophobe because I've got no unreasoning fear of homosexuality or nothing. I don't want to get butt raped.
I think the how should we put this? I think what we're talking about here really are social norms.
Yeah,
and that is where I think a lot of the militancy on the side of homosexuality and whatever just doesn't seem to understand. I mean, there is a difference with a society ascribing you the same right as everybody else and a social acceptance of seeing what you, a very small minority in society, would kind of get up to, so to speak. Put it like this, it's very often very illustrative to take things to extremes, because like that, you can kind of illustrate it ad absurdum. So just consider pornography. So imagine just seeing any, most sort of pornography between man and woman. Okay, there might be a few ew moments when perhaps certain practices come up, which perhaps you sort of think, well, no, they're not for me. But nonetheless, you still feel reasonably comfortable within your skin. Now move on to full-on man-on-man gay sex, and then tell me whether you still feel comfortable watching this. And the simple truth is, you don't. And that isn't bigotry, it's just an inherent reaction within you. Now, people will tell you, oh, this is internalized homophobia and whatever. It is not. There is something that is going on that just makes your skin crawl. And therefore, you don't want to see this. You don't want to be shown this. Now, as such, with gay pornography, there is not a problem, because you only really come upon it, really, either if some search result gives you some unfortunate results, or if you go looking for it.
Or if Sargon tweets it at you.
Precisely, yes. Of course. How silly of me. But in a way, seeing two guys make out, as you say, is really a lesser version of that revulsion. And that's why, really, it is within our social norm that shouldn't really be done in public. Now, you can say that is unfair, because if heterosexuals can do it in public, why shouldn't homosexuals? Well, that is because it doesn't fit into the social norm. And you have to be realistic. Just because you're gay and you have the same rights, it doesn't mean that the same social norms apply. This is the same thing, of course, like with gender roles, where, yes, of course, you have the right to do the same thing as a woman, or you have the right to do the same thing as a man. But nonetheless, those are rights. Those are things that are put down in statutes, but it doesn't really apply to social norms. And therefore, we do have different expectations of men or of women when they are out in public.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Obviously, that you said yourself that not you yourself is indirectly saying that you don't like the two men kissing. It's obviously the social norms aspect that you're going down. Sorry.
It's the social norm, but it applies to me as much as I feel that it applies to the general social norm. No, I feel deeply uncomfortable. It's really something I just don't want to see.
No, sorry, I muted myself halfway through my question.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, as I was saying about obviously this is just what we, as a generalization, call a social norm. But what would you feel if it was to females that were doing it, as in lesbian couple? Being that we would be technically attracted to the women in general if they are of good-looking stature and whatever.
Which we never are.
I agree, but if we were attracted,
I would apply exactly the same rule to that. I would apply the same. Put it like this: if you were out and about with, some, two small kids of yours, and you were walking the streets, and there is a couple, man and woman, making out, two teenagers, you would more than likely feel, much more at ease with the kids seeing that and the kids asking you questions about that, other than if it is two guys going at each other, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just generally we know what our comfort zone is and what is really out beyond that comfort zone, and that is largely in a way defined by social norms. And we can pretend those social norms don't exist, which is what the social justice movement seeks to do.
Can I ask a separate question?
Go ahead.
From the point of obviously what we're talking about it from the perspective of the male gender, obviously. If we were to look at it from the female perspective, as in the female gender, would they not be more acceptable to men doing it than what they would do of two females doing it, as in they would be repulsed by the two females that were doing it, to a point?
No. Given the nature of female sexuality or whatever, I think they would more than likely be more accepting of two females doing it than of two men doing it.
Well, and I got something for y'all, because this is for all you evolutionists. Social norms would be born of instinct. Okay, if we have evolved from however far you want to go back, from the primordial ooze, from the primordial slime to the eons of time and divergent evolution. We became, who knows, mammals in the water and then crawled onto land. All social norms would be born of instinct. Where else would they come from? We're not now considering that there is a God that left any kind of knowledge or any guidance for us to follow. So when we consider the social norm of seeing two women making out, seeing two men making out, the reason I pose right now, my idea is that the reason that's a social norm, the reason we feel that way, is because evolution would say when Tyrannosaurus Rex is trying to eat you and your children, and you are fighting other tribes for food because there's not enough for the winter, and people are dying of disease and all of these things that we have easy cures for now, the last thing you want to do is get in a relationship where you're not having, you're no procreation. You don't have any prodigy. And so there you go. That's my little diatribe on that. And that's for everyone out there that is going to use that argument that, oh no, that's a social norm is a complete just social construct they're using, Brett. No, There's a difference between a social norm and a social construct.
Well,
social norms are born of instinct, and social constructs are things that people just make for arbitrary reasons. Go ahead.
Well, I think they are born of instinct, or they are born of, how shall we say, trying to curb certain human proclivities. So in some cases, it may be instinct that leads us to them, or it may be the need to keep in check our instincts that leads us to them. So, you know, just as one, I made a video once about when I kind of spoke about how much damage one young woman could do to a small society. I mean, given that we're not really programmed as human beings to live in, you know, multi-million people cities where nobody knows each other. If one young woman would really be promiscuous, ridiculously promiscuous, then you have to understand that she would be capable of creating much more mayhem than a young man, because there are certain physical limitations as to with how many women a man can sleep. There are effectively none with a woman. So therefore, society has put upon women a greater stress regarding
Shame them.
To basically be chaste, so to speak. Now, people say, oh, that is discriminatory, that is this, that is that. Well, yes, but there is a counterbalance. How far has society gone out of its way to curb male violence? Because, of course, the male is the aggressive one. He is the one who is much more potent when it comes to, you know, knocking people's heads about. Particularly when it comes to knocking women's heads about. And if you think of it, in as far as social norm is concerned, beating up on women is the ultimate no-no. So it shows how society has sought to curtail that which is the greatest problem to it. So with the male, it is sought to curtail violence, whereas with the female, it is sought to curtail promiscuity. So these are not as such discriminatory actions. One isn't not discriminating against female violence because one is just seeking to be mean to males and pick on them. No, there is a reason for this one-sided action, and that is because the two sexes are not the same. They must be treated differently by social norms. And in the same way, that applies to women. So when you have militant feminists challenging these social norms because they say they are one-sided, they are only challenging the social norms which they see placed on themselves in a one-sided manner. But they are quite happy to accept the social norms which are placed on the opposite sex. And that, in a way, shows the utter hypocrisy within it. But I'm kind of drifting, if you know what I mean. As I say,
you're doing great, bro. I do want to put something in the chat when you're done.
When it comes to the social norms, they are there for a reason, and some of them, yes, as the ogre said, are there because they, in a way, reflect our basic needs, our basic instincts. Others are there to curb those very instincts, because society cannot function if we all just behave like animals. And therefore, there must be a certain rigor imposed upon us.
Very good, Sharon Stone, with that basic instinct. I will say, no, but this come up, and I know that you two here have heard me say this before, so I'll do it quickly. Please listen quickly in the chat. This is for Craig Ferguson. The best case study that I know of, they took chickens and put them in a enclosed barn where they could not see the outside. There were opaque windows in it that weren't completely translucent. You couldn't see straight through them, and so they could never see anything flying up above them. They went 5 generations. They let 5 generations be born and die. And what I'm addressing is the idea of passed on knowledge, this idea of pre-programmed psychology. Okay, that's the way he put it. But it's DNA. It's learning on the biological
on the DNA.
level.
Information stored in DNA.
Passed on. So the 5th generation of these chickens, they begun to fly things over their heads. If they flew up, very specific, and I see it with my birds. I was just outside yesterday, folks. No kidding. Come in and told Miss Solger right away, and a red-tailed hawk come right over the roof of my house. Was only about 8 feet from where I stood. I was out there. I don't want to get too far off that, but when they seen that hawk, they're gone, man. They know what a hawk is. So they begin on the 5th generation of these birds. Never seen a hawk in their life, and neither had 4 generations before them. You can guess what happened. They tow over things that look like vultures. Peck, peck, scratch, scratch. They tow over things that look like what? You name it, nothing. Big blackbirds, nothing. Hawk-shaped, owl-shaped, eagle-shaped, gone. They're trying to kill each other to get underneath nothing in this barn, underneath the feeders. So do we, as human beings, have inherent knowledge from our forefathers? Absolutely. In my opinion, no one can prove this as of yet. But I mean, come on, if the chickens do, that's been proven. Wouldn't you imagine that human beings do? So I vehemently side with the Britisher. Call me homophobic. I don't give a shit. I was just recently called a lot worse than that by people that like me. So it's okay. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not homophobic. We are wired a certain way for a certain reason. Maybe the spark of this going on now is a new wiring that's taken place because we're at the top of that bell curve, not Murray's bell curve, the top of the ecological bell curve, the top of the existence bell curve, the peak of humanity. And maybe it's one of the ways that's coming about to slow down billions of ants on this earth.
Well, I think I don't think that there's a change afoot. I think that the people who basically will sort of militantly say, and I'm talking of heterosexual people here, who are basically saying, oh, well, no, this should be treated exactly the same. These people are exactly the same as us. I think they feel exactly the same kind of conflict inside that we do. But their basic reaction is, it makes me feel uncomfortable, thus I must virtue signal how completely normal this is to me and how this is not at all uncomfortable to me. I think almost the more uncomfortable it makes them feel, the more they feel the need to insist that this is completely normal. I think that is that strange inverse logic that we're experiencing at the moment.
Okay, let me quickly, because I just did it, Brett. I just realized I let you kind of run out of gas and I wasn't paying enough attention. So let me explain it to our, I think, a very newcomer here, Craig Ferguson. I've seen him a few other times. But if I keep engaging with you, Craig, this deep, what I'll do is I'll forget everybody else, and I can't give that same kind of deference to everybody. So let me say this instead of trying to type it out. If, Craig, you're that interested in that study, you'd have to, A, have a very good access to a peer-reviewed journal site. So you have to have access to a library, either usually have to pay for them. I pay for one myself. Or you have to be currently enrolled in college, and you can usually access theirs. Then I would just type in the keywords, inherent knowledge of predators in the avian species or in chickens. If you type in chickens scared by hawks after 5 generations, it'll pop, you know what I mean? It'll pop up. So you can type in just about anything. The name of that study, though, is, I mean, I was just trying to make up something cool. That wasn't what it was. That wasn't the name. But you can find it. Actually,
while we're sort of, in order to sort of segue into something that is similar to what we've just been talking about, but which is nonetheless slightly different, there was, I don't know, are you familiar with Girl Writes What?
Oh, yeah. Karen Stranahan.
Yeah, something like that. I always get her surname wrong, I'm afraid.
Stranahan, I believe.
But she tweeted a link to a YouTube clip today by an Australian lady called Bettina Arndt, and it was a wonderful one. I think it's about a quarter of an hour long, something like that. and she talks about the politics of cleavage. And it's just an interesting one because it plays exactly into those social norms. And what she basically talks about is, look, ladies, if you're going out in hot pants with, you know, a tiny, teeny little t-shirt, and then a man ends up eyeing your cleavage, why exactly are you jumping down his throat in an aggressive manner when you are effectively putting something on show which every single one of his evolutionary instincts commands him to take an interest in? So effectively, you are putting things on show for the men from whom you wish to have a reaction. But what you seem to forget is you are putting things on show for all men.
That's right.
So you are then taking offense if other men whom you are not interested in are taking an interest in you. And just in order to be precise, this was not about assault, this was not about rape or anything like that. This was just a matter of a man being caught observing a woman too closely. And we all know these situations where the woman then reacts extremely aggressively, perhaps seeks the most humiliating way possible of, you know, ostracizing him in public as a pervert.
Brain about it. Yeah.
Whereas actually she is the one who effectively has got all her goods on show. His problem was in fact not taking an interest in it, because the only reasons she puts them on show is because she wants interest in them.
Mm-hmm.
However, his problem, therefore, is merely the fact that he is the wrong guy.
Yeah.
That she wants interest from somebody else. And it's a very interesting video. I can highly recommend it.
Say the name of it again, Brett.
Let's see. I'm just looking here.
I would say everybody has a Mrs. Jones and a Mrs. Whatsit. You know, and Mrs. Jones, they're both 70 years old. And Mrs.
So that's
Jones,
I've put the link there in the side chat, and this is the name of the lady involved. So if you want to put that in the chat or whatever for people to see. And yes, it's a very interesting one that she kind of very well manages to kind of analyze that situation.
the politics of cleavage. We're going to lose our entire audience for about a half hour.
Well, no, others say that I'm sorry, you know, that there are no great amounts of cleavage on show. It is really just a matter about the principle that she's speaking about.
It looks pretty scientific. Yeah.
And what is so interesting about it? What gives this greater relevance? And I think we all have to be honest about this, is the fact that it's coming from a woman. If this would be a man saying this, he would be dismissed as an MRA. He would be seen as some loser who can't get a girlfriend and is now just lashing out. Whereas given that it comes from a kind of, well-set lady who is speaking to her younger compatriots, basically saying, look, folks, I think you have to rethink this one, because you're being extremely selfish in the way you're conducting yourself. And that you are effectively using your feminine power by putting it out there, but then at the same time you are then dictating who is allowed to be interested in it, when in fact it is a normal instinct of all men to be interested in it. So either, if male interest in your form is offensive to you, then stop flaunting it, or accept that if you wish to, in a way, present yourself in that manner, that men will be interested. That's not to say that assault or whatever would be acceptable, but it's just a matter of, look, stop going berserk of men just looking at you. Because frankly, if you're walking around in hot pants and a teeny tiny tank top, what message are you actually putting out there?
Yeah.
That you're interested in having a partner for the night?
Well, I mean,
there's all
even if
kinds of
it's
schools of
not
thought.
for the night, you are advertising your fertility on a purely evolutionary basis. You are advertising your fertility.
Yeah,
Well, the
that's what I
on a
meant.
purely
fitness would come back and
evolutionary
say male
basis,
gaze.
a male will be interested in that.
Well, you probably know common sense. A really hardcore Anita Sarkeesian type would say this is still a patriarchal male problem because male gaze has created an environment where the girls want to dress this way. So no matter what, I mean, these people have a way of making it our fault.
Well,
no matter what.
No, I'm
best-
sorry. I'm sorry. No, that also comes under the argument of collective evolution from the female perspective as well. Knowing that if they dress like a conservative, for instance, as in they don't show off their titties, they don't show off their ass, they don't show off their butt cleavage or whatever, then they know that people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then, then you know that people are not going to look at you. You're not going to get the people are looking on you, the eyes on your body to make people be more attracted to you. Whereas if you dress provocatively...
Are you talking about the unnatural butt cleavage?
I was hinting towards that, yes. But
you know, just given that Tracer's bottom is just too plump to be natural.
Yes, indeed.
Even though I think there would be quite a few females who could prove that theory wrong.
Oh yeah, there definitely. One would be Kim Kardashian, as she's actually had surgery to change
just
it.
for people to know that, I once reported on Brianna Wu having one of his or her moments. I'm actually told that this once again is a transsexual, which kind of took me by surprise because I'd never actually looked at a picture of Brianna Wu. But yes, it was all about the fiction, the entirely fictional character of a computer games figure called Tracer that is kind of seen in some poses where the her butt cheeks look rather plump, let's put it like that.
Yeah.
And Brianna Wu went on a multi-paragraph dissertation as to why these butt cheeks are unnatural, and in fact no woman would actually be able to survive having that sort of anatomy. And you just went, well, I'm quite sure I have seen a few women who have got such anatomy.
Indeed. But my point was rather, even though I was throwing little bits and pieces in there, that due to collective evolution of the female perspective, so to speak, it's the same as the men. They had their own version of collective evolution, and between the two of them, they have gone to a pyramid point where they've made it easier and easier and easier and easier and easier to get to the point of deciding whether or not they're going to have sex and procreate with these people and like make babies and whatever. And that's the thing, what I mean by collective evolution. They've made it easier by making dressing more provocatively. You've got people that are now, like men, that use this term called peacocking, where they dress really flamboyantly to try and get their personality overlooks and blah, blah, blah. But all of these are from collective evolution to try and go, well, this didn't work, but this did, and trying to knock things out that didn't work to make it go in on that they do work. And this is exactly the same as what you were saying before, where it comes to the point where they dress with a certain amount of, shall we say, skin on show that makes people look at them more, and they elevate themselves to get a better mate, and then they have to fight off the lower ones that they don't want, which is...
Sorry, no, please finish.
I was going to say, which is also shown obviously by, and I know people go, oh, but we're not monkeys, but it's shown in monkeys, as in you have the leader of the harem, so to speak, and the male will try and take the other females, but are only interested in the other one. And that's the same what's gone on in our collective evolution, to the point where we don't have the harems as such anymore, but we still go to big clubs, and everybody would be interested in that one jock type bloke, the one that looks like he's got lots of money and quite big, and most of them will be interested in that man. So most of them will dress for that person, if you know what I mean. So you've then got to try and draw that person's attention away, and it's exactly the same thing.
Well, if I can just, before the ogre takes us on to
no, I took that off because this is really
there was just one more thing that I had a wonderful little Twitter exchange earlier today, and it was, I think it was Sophane who liked a particular tweet. Sophane being Sophane, he is that particular person you spoke about at the nightclub, Common Sense. I think knows quite a few attractive ladies on Twitter, and there was one particular lady who put out a tweet of herself photographed, let's just say, from a very steep angle above, whilst lying on her bed, and basically said, well, said something, I'm paraphrasing here, along the lines of, well, I am going to bed now, so you'll have to content yourself with my cleavage. After which I kind of responded that, well, it's not so much cleavage we're looking at here as protuberances. Now, this it was one of these moments where you're trying to be amusing and the other side just does not get it.
I got it.
So, as this exchange was going on, I was several times told that if I'm talking technically about cleavage, then I must be gay. To which, of course, I responded that, well, to Americans, all us Brits are gay.
Yes.
Sound gay. Sound gay.
Eventually, I had to literally spell it out to her that if she were to be lying on her back and would still have cleavage, she would have to be some woman.
Never seen
after
it.
Which I didn't receive a reply.
Well, it's almost impossible to just, unless there was something on the sides holding them up. But anyway. Yeah, boobies. This is like a full-on booby stream. I might rename it. I'm not going to change it from In the Woods because
this is the Clay Travis tribute stream.
All right. Yeah, the Clay Travis tribute stream. Now, I would probably keep it In the Woods because, as Wood pointed out, I'm always making jokes like you are, Brett, and don't know it. Sometimes you make a joke and you don't know it. But Wood is one of our closest followers. Whatever we decide to call him, peers, one of our closest, longest running peers, and In the Woods. He's like, oh, you did a stream for me finally. That's kind of funny. No, I live in the woods, and it's just I'm telling you what, where I'm glad I don't live right now. Puerto Rico. Cha-cha, cha-cha.
There's not a lot of cha-chaing going on at the moment, I believe.
Cha-cha right the fuck out of there or into a grave. It's category 4, boys. I mean, really, look, I just want to start this way in all earnestness. Donald Trump, you said now you're not going to pull out of the Donald Trump. If you don't pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, as you said you would, this hillbilly will never fucking vote for your yeller ass again. Not for motherfucking dog catcher. And I'm not trying to just be vulgar, Mr. Trump, but I don't appreciate being flat out buffaloed. You could change your mind, but once you do something cool that the people that voted for you probably thought was cool, can't undo it like the DACA thing. You start doing that stuff with Nancy Pelosi and whatnot, getting blowjobs from Nancy Pelosi and, having Schumer holding nuts while she does it.
Now, just a sec. That was never likely to be happening with Nancy Pelosi. I'm sorry. Have you seen Donald Trump's wife and have you seen Nancy Pelosi?
Oh, yeah. And so besides,
please,
Nancy's
just in order to inject just a little bit of reality.
And listen,
so please continue.
Nancy's never given one of them in her life. We all know that. As we said earlier about Anita, I wonder how many times she goes down. Never in her life. Anyway, let me get serious now. Donald Trump is causing these hurricanes. And now we have, I can't even keep track of their names. There was the one that hit Texas, the one that hit Florida, and now this one that probably hit Florida again.
It was Harvey in Texas,
Harvey,
Irma in Florida, and now it's Maria, isn't it?
Yeah. And they they name depressions and tropical storms. So there could have been some other stuff that they've named because it goes in alphabetical order. H.I., Harvey, Irma. That means the one right after the other. There was not even a tropical storm or depression in between. And then JKLM, you know, so this is what, 4 or 5 in between. But in that span of time, man, right now, boys, let me do this. So all that was my joke to get into this very heavy deal, because no kidding about the Paris climate thing. Because listen, folks, when I first moved to Florida years ago, there was no hurricanes when I got there. It was like, oh, we never have a hurricane. And then boom, 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 boom. Like 3 years, man. Andrew hit. You know what I mean? When Andrew hit, oh Lord, man, Homestead, Florida. Leveled. And we're not talking about trailer parks. There was some, but they also leveled nice custom homes and track homes in the area. Anyway, it comes and goes. I will say this, not because I'm a scientist, but because in listening to other people, namely Stossel, John Stossel was just on Tucker Carlson, and he was saying this, and I've heard other people say, yeah, you know, I guess, would I be foolish, boys, to say that humans couldn't be having some impact on the climate in our world? Well, I'll answer for you and then cut y'all loose on this. Yes, I believe that I would be foolish to say that humans have zero impact on the environment or the climate in the world. A measurable one, in contrast with what's going to happen anyway. In other words, cause an ice age, cause volcanoes to go off and put up so much CO2 that it kills off the dinosaurs. I just can't really, I don't buy that. I couldn't sell that. If I can't sell something, that means that I just don't believe it. And here you go. Relax. Everyone, anyone that will watch this in the future, relax. You know, this whole idea, look, I guess the 23rd of this month, do y'all know that we're supposed to be like, something's supposed to happen? I guess God's coming back.
Yeah, the rapture's supposed to be coming.
In 2 days.
Yep.
Look at me.
And end of the days.
I know all the prophets. The funny thing is, I know the prophecies they're talking about too. They're talking about the 800-year prophecy, the 42-week prophecy. I mean, these things are things that I studied for years and years and years. And they're just, I don't even know what it seems to me is they're just tacking it on because of the eclipse. Well, anyway. So look, that's getting a little rambling. I'm rambling. I'm pulling a Britisher. I could say an ogre, though. We both do the same thing. We get all philosophical, and I'm glad everyone bears with us. Hopefully that's why.
I'm so glad that you don't put me into that section.
Not yet. Not yet. You did better today. You actually stomped on a couple toes when it was your turn, and you did a lot. I mean, by better, I mean you're getting more forceful, and that's the way we like it. So let me wrap this up and let you go loose. If you want to talk about this, boys, I'm just pulling some stuff off a Drudge Report right now. And when I see this, let me just show you all.
There is something I have that might tie into that.
Oh, I see. Yep.
And that is, I found an article in The Sun. Now, The Sun being what it is, you always have to take things with a pinch of salt, but it does seem to kind of, this doesn't seem to be something that is entirely invented, if you know what I mean. So this has got seems to have some source, so to speak. But basically the title of this reads, How Scientists Got Their Global Warming Sums Wrong and Created a $1 trillion a year green industry that bullied experts who dared to question the figures. So it seems to suggest that there seems to have been some news. And that's why I still need to kind of find out whether there is, whether there are any other sources, so to speak, because The Sun isn't really your leading scientific paper. But it kind of suggests that, yes, there does now seem to be some changing of thought. So basically, I mean, at the bottom of the article here, why the experts have backtracked. Scientists have changed their minds about the rate of climate change, saying the Earth is not heating up as rapidly as feared. So basically, you've got what did they think before? In the past, climate change scientists did not think it was possible to reduce global temperature increases to 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial levels, as demanded in the 2016 Paris Agreement. Why has the expert opinion changed? A study in scientific journal Nature Geoscience says that the computer models used by governments to predict climate change exaggerated the impact of man-made emissions. Global temperatures since 2000 have not risen as much as the computer studies predicted. What difference will this make? If the world had followed the original predictions, only 70 billion tons of carbon could be emitted in total after 2015 if the planet was to be saved. But the new predictions suggest that we can emit an extra 240 billion tons. This is good news for low-lying Pacific islands, which would be flooded if temperature rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius. So essentially, there seems to now be some latest study coming out that seems to be suggesting, look, folks, yes, it seems to be a bit of hokum. Not the fact that there is global warming, not the fact that man might have an influence, but this kind of panic, as in we seem
Just
to be
relax.
at the end of the world. And that we do seem to have considerably more leeway, that you know, there are certain buffering aspects within nature and whatever, that we're not at the end of the world.
No. Well, and this is the cover of Drudge, you know. I mean, this is how I'm sure every newspaper today, and then everybody's going to be sensationalizing it. And of course, it's a terrible thing. But let's just look at it this way, folks. When Galveston was hit by a big, or excuse me, Corpus Christi was hit by a big hurricane, I am not going to get the year even close. I believe it was late 1800s. But whenever it was the big Corpus Christi hurricane, and they didn't even know of a storm surge. There was no way to predict these things. The storm surge hit first, and there was people that when the ocean receded so far back as it does before a big surge like that, at times they were out there picking seashells up off the thing. There were hundreds and hundreds of people killed in that. I mean, nowadays, and don't get me wrong, loss of property is a big deal. We could all agree on that, but no one could disagree with. I mean, as Queen Victoria laid and was dying, her alleged last words were, "All my possessions for one more moment," Brits. That was your Queen's last words. And what did she possess? All of bloody England and its holdings. She was saying she would give everything. I don't want to get too vehement. And so, look, this is a fear tactic. It's something that we need to remember that all that loss of life in the past is a thing in the past. Property gets blown away, but it can be rebuilt. We lost 8 people in one tragedy because of the air conditions weren't working in Florida after Irma, and 8 people in one nursing home. I think everybody probably saw that died. But I mean, the overall loss of life from the hurricane and outlying reasons is low, folks. We live in a day and age where we don't need to fear these things quite like we used to. The only people that need to fear are the knuckleheads like myself. That as Andrew was approaching, I was driving down toward it, you know, with some boys and a couple chainsaws just for the hell of it. Be like, yeah, some old lady's got to have a tree out her house, you know. Anyway. Well, that's what we did. We didn't charge or nothing, man. We went down there with some beers and some. That's what people would inevitably buy pizza or something, but we'd find people that just didn't have insurance, tree in their roof, and cut it off. But damn, so I'm going to go off to another topic, but don't buy the hype. 1.5 degree, Britt. That's why I don't believe this stuff is because you got Al Gore with his big, massive mansion that costs, I don't want to exaggerate, but I believe it was $18,000 a bleeding month in electricity bills. $18,000. And I could have that wrong. Somebody correct me if they know. Maybe 1,800. It was a lot anyway, regardless. And it's this, sprawling 8,000 square foot home with several banks of air conditioners underground, it's out. And he's there talking about an inconvenient truth. And according to him, there would be stuff underwater as we speak. No doubt about it if you watch the first one. And yet they made another one. This is pseudoscience. It's fear mongering. Yeah, that was it. I know I went on for a long time there. Nobody's like, he's never going to shut up.
I don't know. I'm in danger of sort of ripping us off the subject and moving us onto something completely different.
I'm fine with that, dude.
And I don't want to do that in case it's actually unless it has already been exhausted. So I don't want to cut the common sense guy off in midstream in case he has something to contribute on this one.
I do indeed.
Go ahead.
I've sent Ogre two DMs. One is from the Daily Star, which is whatever. The other is from the Daily Telegraph, that all state that in October that we're going to be having snow. By that I mean we haven't had.
But that of course, when we have deep winters, which we have sometimes here in Britain, I mean, sometimes we suddenly can hit minus 16 degrees centigrade, which is absolutely insane.
Yes.
But when we have something like that, we then get the climatologists coming out saying, well, you see, this proves us right, because global warming can lead to crazy weather conditions.
Indeed. The reason why they say that this is happening is because of it's El Nino time around the world at the moment. And that's the reason why they're saying that the climate is changing and everything else like that. And that's the reason why we're going to be getting snow in October. But then doesn't that also mean that if El Nino is coming, then that would be the reasons for the hurricanes and not global warming? Or is it just two different things?
I'm not even sure it is El Nino time, because I think El Nino was about 3 years ago. And normally
I'm just going on what they said.
Yeah, no. I'm not. If anything, I'm kind of doubting them rather than you.
It is a Daily Star.
Because normally, when it comes to El Nino, I believe it is something like a 6 or 7 year cycle. So I'm not sure whether it would be too soon. I mean, El
I can
Nino,
hardly get myself to screenshot this either.
It's a strange phenomenon, El Nino, that can kind of almost last for 2 or 3 years before it levels out again.
Yeah, the Daily Star one's not particularly great.
Thumbnails are rough, man. I think the other one I can show if you want to look at it. But El Nino is something that happens. It's been happening for a long time. El Nina also.
Can I say that the Mirror, which I'll send a link to in just a couple of seconds, which is on
the chat, if you will, mate, because I got to close Twitter. I'm not running on mine, and this is all coming from. I mean, this is all Wi-Fi. That's going to end up crashing my whole system.
Sorry. Basically, I won't send the side link because I'm doing it on my phone, doing the other bits of checking.
But if I just tell me that I can open Twitter and then close it once I got a link.
Just 1 second. I'll just send it right now.
No UK weather: snow and storms to strike Britain, with low temperatures lasting for weeks.
It's just the Mirror, the Mirror.co.uk science. It states that there is an El Nino that is coming in 2017.
El Nino is coming.
Yes.
Sounds so ridiculous to me.
The reason they say this is, I think, wasn't it in 1947 we had one of the most brutal winters ever, and I think it was an El Nino year.
Yes.
And I think there was someone in the 1960s again when we had a terrible winter, and again it was an El Nino year. So El Nino can correspond with terrible winters in Britain, but there are also plenty of other winters that have occurred in Britain that were El Nino years where it was not freezing cold. So, in a way, what one seems to be leaping to extremes here. So I'm not really sure to what extent one can really say with any certainty that a bad winter is coming. I mean, these are the people who struggle to tell us what the weather is going to be like next week.
Yes, Mr. Fish.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I tell you what, boys, this is getting so weird. I've got a screenshot. This is completely off topic, but I got a screenshot because I was going to read like the definition for El Nino, but I just got a DM from Zero Cool as I was checking that DM, and he sends me this, and he's trying to. You can see right here where there's these bars that are blank. That's him trying to say something, and on his end, that shows up as red, and it's just a red bar. He's trying to actually put in comments as we speak right now, and it's not letting him comment, man. I mean, it's these little. I don't even know it, Brett. I don't even care if we get off in the weeds in it or not, gentlemen. But I tell you, these little hiccups and things really makes one sit back, and for myself, sit up on my heels and wonder what is going on with these people. I mean, you know, is it like, is it, because it's so bad, even if this has nothing to do with them, boys, nothing. The fact that when I see SoFane, you know, sending out, oh, they just got millions of dollars over at PayPal, supposed to do this, that, or I can't remember if it was PayPal or Patreon, one of them, you know, supposed to do this, that, and the other. And I was like, yeah, they probably end up kicking a lot of good people off. Fingers crossed. Hopefully nobody mistook that for me saying fingers crossed that they're going to kick them off. I was saying fingers crossed they weren't going to pull the old Google and start just like, no, we don't like you, Sargon. Boom, rice bowl. Boom. Not just broken, disintegrated. You $6,000. Christmas time for your children. Freaking vacation with your wife. Anyway, just makes me wonder. Bastards.
Well, it definitely makes me wonder about.
Are you going to calm the ogre down, or shall I?
I think he's okay. I think he's doing okay now. But it's definitely weird.
He's DMing me right now. He's like, no, I don't know what the hell this is, and he says this blows. You know, Zero, man, he's a typing fool too. He'll be in there. He's Mr. Clatterfingers, and he wants to say something right now, and he can't. Anyway, well, I'm sorry if I cut anybody off. Carry on. Yeah, I'm not really that worked up about it, but I like dramatic effect because I want to set this in people's minds. What is this? Whatever community, because I know the skeptic thing. I don't want to. I'm different, so I don't really fit in anywhere. It does seem like some skeptics have taken me under their wing, so it's fine with me. I'll lay my head wherever I can find a pillow. But that said, man, we should do something. There's got to be something we can do, Brett.
You've just touched upon something which is just a sort of a wonderful little thing which may send you off into delirious spirals. Who knows? Because you just mentioned, I will lay my head wherever I can find a pillow. And this is one of these things that when I'm feeling contrary and I speak to people who to whom talking about evolution is a religious experience, I always ask, being facetious and mischievous as I am, if we are evolved creatures, why do we need pillows?
To make us feel comfortable.
Well, yes, but what I mean is, how could evolution produce a creature that couldn't lie down and sleep and then wake up the next day with a crick in its neck? If it hadn't had
every other animal can too.
If it hadn't had a tool with which to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a bird. My birds at night. All of them, their heads, it looks like a bunch of decapitated birds sitting on their perches. They just put their head right up under their wing, and that's it. And they're fast asleep. That's funny. That is a funny point. I would also add to that, Britt, why do we have to wipe our butts?
Because we don't squat anymore. That's the reason for that.
Oh, but I've been in the woods too much. That's an invalid argument, because even if you do it that way, in the woods, you still want a little bit of something. I mean, you don't want to just get up and walk away riding that pony bareback.
That's what you were saying though before about collective evolution, about the fact that we've been wiping our asses since what, the 1800s now, or just before the 1900s.
Well, I'm just putting that there with pillows. Pillows. I mean, I'm saying that if we evolved, why do we need to wipe our butt? Why didn't we evolve like a dog? Man, my dog is never.
I'd say there's a difference with pillows. The reason why I'd say there's a difference with pillows is because we were monkeys, obviously, to start off with, or the general consensus is we were monkeys to start off, or chimpanzees to start off with. We would technically normally sleep in a tree or sleep as a community. But then we started going off and doing our walking and running and whatever and hunting on the ground. And then we started living in caves, meaning that we didn't naturally sleep on caves because normally we would be leaning up against something. So eventually we ended up using rocks or bits of leaves or things like that, or using our hands. If you notice, whenever you go on the floor, we use our hands to put it together as a prayer and put it up near our ears so we can have a little bit of an elevation like that. That's a collective evolution trait because everybody does it. It's just a natural thing. Everybody does that. That would be our natural way of sleeping. And it's only natural to elevate that to have more of a pillow.
Now, man's not causing global warming, and we didn't evolve from monkeys, and the pillow is the reason why. You could say we did.
Well, you see, I actually believe in evolution, but
I know
I don't. I am. How shall we say? It is exactly it is exactly as I put it. I believe in evolution. The fact that this is just something that is completely known, and therefore there is, that there is no question to be asked. That is when I come up with things like pillows, because I just like to taunt those people who always claim to have certainty.
I think the common sense guy knows my argument against evolution. It is a bug called the bombardier beetle that in its backside has two tailpipes that mix water and something that's very much like, excuse me, I can't remember what. They mix two chemicals, regardless, that mix in the air. When they get mad, then they can swivel that thing over 180 degrees. So they can, if they're walking this way and you're back there, or something comes in front of them, they don't have to turn around. They can go. It sounds like one pop. If anybody can look up bombardier beetle and on YouTube, and you'll see pictures of this bad little mofo. But how would that possibly have evolved if at any time in its evolution, one drop of that solution got into the other solution? You'd have a situation where the bug would explode. I've heard people use venom arguments, but that is you could say that somehow or another something got an infection or something and created a cyst around it, passed it on somehow or another.
I'd like to make another point.
Yeah, go ahead. About the bombardier beetle, or no? Because I don't care. But that's just one of my arguments.
I'll come back to the bombardier beetle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you can explain that away quite easily.
Okay.
But there's a spider. There's a spider, a desert spider. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it is in America. It's not in anywhere else. That when it's threatened, it will spit blood, its own blood out of its fangs to attach onto people's eyes so they can't see, so it can run away. Now, how do you explain that for evolutionary purpose? Because a spider would generally have venom. So if it was going to spit it from its fangs, why would it spit blood? That's a bit of a cruel, weird one. But as the bit you said about the bombardier beetle, as you said, you could quite easily have the venom ducts. Evolution's a weird and wonderful thing when it comes to that point, if you are a believer in it. To the point where it swivels, well, that's just muscles. If it swivels 180 degrees, that means it's not going to come in on itself. That's just muscles. The same as our wrists can bend 180 degrees, same as our shoulders can. I don't know, that bit's a bit weird, but the bit with blood and things like that and how venom is made and things like that is a bit weird.
See that right there? When this baby fires off, the fluid, once it mixes, and they're really tough, you can see he's actually hitting himself a little bit with some overspray, but he's tearing that ant up. That liquid is about 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
Bloody hell.
So yeah, it's really close to boiling. It's really close to 100 degrees Celsius. I mean, I imagine that would translate to somewhere around 90 degrees Celsius. I'm really not good at translating to Celsius in my head. But look at that baby. See the smoke? I'm telling you, I mean, if those chemicals mixed inside of that bug, it would go pop. It's just it would explode. So that is a tough one for me, the bomba. But you know what? I also have my own ideas on who the creator was. I think it was a very rapid thing, so a 6-day affair, but I also am not sure how it went about in the long run, because we definitely know, not the idea of talking about evolution or if it's divergent evolution. We know that there's a difference between macro and micro evolution, and as far as microevolution, I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, you can just see that in nature today. It happens. Things do change slightly. Look at the Galapagos Islands. But anyway, yeah, I knew I could get a laugh out of you, right? So the 6 days. As soon as I said 6 days, common sense was like,
yeah. I have a different question then. Yeah. If you obviously believe that it was all done in 6 days, what purpose would the bombardier beetle actually have? And considering it was a newer discovery rather than it being an old discovery,
it's bad to the bone. I would say that the answers that I give won't be valid here. Okay, the answer that I would I mean it, and I'm not going to be intellectually dishonest with you. I'm just going to tell you the answer I would give is that if you read the same book that I read on this particular mythos, it would say that after the humans here made certain decisions, there was a consequence for those decisions. And so I don't think that, for example, in the very beginning, the genesis of this world, I don't think that there were mosquitoes, mates. I also, I mean, it says specifically in this book that I read that there were no, we know there were no thorns, no thistles, no weeds. You could till up a spot, put some plants there, and the weeds wouldn't come and overtake it. And again, I mean, I got to stress, if you believe that thing, that kind of thing, that's what I would ascribe to that. Do you know what? It could be a cosmic joke, bro. I don't know. No idea. I was watching this yogi yesterday, and he was explaining Hare Krishna. He was they're not yogis, are they? But it was a guy, was a guru, and he was talking about Hare Krishna, and that Hare Krishna means energy of Krishna, power. Hinduism. And he was talking about what do you call that? Where you keep going on and on.
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation. And he was just saying, this was his point. If you think I'm crazy, he said, well, when you go to sleep, I'm just saying that people believe different things. When you go to sleep, you're not alive. Where do you go? Have you ever been working and doing something somewhere else in your sleep? And the guy was like, well, yeah, I've dreamed. And he was like, well, see, and then you left your body, you go and you do some other things because this body isn't functioning right now. And so then when you come back and you see a body that still can function, you return back into it, the you being not the body, and then you go about your business. And then he said, well, one day, of course, you leave that body because it's not functioning, and you look at it and you see that, oh, it's not going to function again. And then he only used an analogy that you would go, that spirit goes and is put into a womb of a woman and comes as a child again. But let's face it, they do believe that, well, you could come back as a cow, would be the ultimate thing to come back as. And a cow, no joke. But you could
for them it is, yeah, because they believe the cow is a deity from God. But to go on to the reincarnation bit, which I'm kind of a believer in reincarnation, but not that strain of reincarnation, as in when you sleep, you die a bit and you move on to another bit. No, I'm sorry. But then again, as you said, everybody has a right to believe in what they want to believe. Whether it's right or wrong, at the end of the day, we may be able to prove that it doesn't work. But until we can prove categorically that everything does work, then who are we to say that it doesn't at the end of the day? But for me, my idea for reincarnation is that, as you said before, through collective evolution, as in the stuff that's stored in your DNA, there must be a form of your soul or form of your essence that sticks to your DNA that will be passed on. And I believe that is my form of reincarnation.
Yeah. Like you said, these strong. I think that what it comes down to is whatever a human being needs to do to help them compartmentalize what we talked about Monday without going right back into that. That we never know. We never know. Could be day, could be minute. No matter what, even if you live to be 110, which is pretty old, you could live longer than that, but let's face it, no one here is going to live any longer than that. You're going to be 110 one day. It will be there. You know what I mean? And whatever helps you deal with that, the knowledge that one day things will drastically change. Well, the better off we are. I keep my mind occupied, because that was something, I'm telling you, boys, 30 was hard on me. When I turned 30, because I swore I was never, because I think it was because people told me that sometimes. I didn't plan. I jumped. Mrs. Ogre and we've jumped off the wall at Uwharrie, 85 feet off of a wall in a big dam spillway. And
wow.
Then Precipice Rock was 90 feet. And I've jumped off of that. And we've done a lot of things like that. So, and I didn't really have a lot of care for it. I wouldn't say I was a total adrenaline junkie. In other words, I didn't do that kind of thing every weekend. But if I could and I got a chance, I went out and took risks. And so I didn't plan on making it. So once I made it to 30, oh man, Lord have mercy. Every single little, oh man, what's that feeling? And oh my, am I going to have, I'd find myself waking up at night and I've heard it put this way by Herman Melville. He's talking about when he wants to go to sea. Ishmael says, when I feel myself a little too over concerned with my heartbeat and over knowledgeable of my breath in and out, and I get really concerned with my hypos. He said, that's the time when I think it's high time that I go back to sea. And I guess that's where I was. I was over concerned with all these things, man. I shit you not. I would wake up at night and I would just swear, this is it. I'm dying. And through that, I realized you can't. So whatever a person has to do, maybe no one has ever been in that situation. Hopefully not, never will. But if you have, if you go through any kind of crisis like that in your life, just remember, ain't nothing you can do about it.
Common sense. Do you want to have a good laugh?
Yeah,
yes, as always.
Well, there is, you know,
things. All this is hilarious.
Article I found here that Theresa May has, of course, been speaking. I don't know whether she was speaking while we were on air or if she was just on shortly before, but she was at the United Nations.
During our time.
Speaking.
Yes, during our time.
Of course, she's been telling off Donald Trump about the climate change and so on. But if you go down, if you scroll down this thing to the last photograph, you actually get there to her addressing a, you know, more than half empty chamber, which I think is telling regarding Theresa May.
Yeah.
And under it, she says she demanded that wasteful aid spending needs to stop. Now, this is Theresa May. This is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom that has got a firm pledge. The United Kingdom government has a firm pledge in place that 0.7% of government taking must be spent on overseas aid.
Yeah.
Which is pretty close to the same amount that we're actually spending on the European Union. You know, if you take in the rebate and everything. Because the official expenditure on the European Union is 1%.
Yeah.
So, we're looking at similar figures here, and basically we blow this every year on overseas aid. In one particular case, was it in Kenya? I'm not sure, or Kenya. We were actually financing a girl band.
Oh, what?
A girl band.
It was a couple of years ago. It was about 10 years ago, wasn't it?
That girl band was was part of a campaign. Was it against AIDS or something like that?
Yeah. As far as I know, it was in the 90s where they were trying to make sure that everybody knew to wear bloody condoms and things like that.
No, I don't think that was the 90s. I think it's much more recent than that.
Is it? Okay. I thought it was a bit later.
Much more. It's not in the immediate last.
Tell me about your government financing a girl band.
But it's basically, so here is Theresa May telling the United Nations that they have to be more mindful of the way they spend overseas aid. And meanwhile, we are just blowing money away, higgledy-piggledy. Simply,
do you know what I find even more worrying?
Because we have a government pledge that it must be done. And just before you come in, Common Sense, when then the Caribbean islands that are dominions of ours get was that
was my point.
Get absolutely decimated by a storm, and then the question comes up, well, hang on a moment, can't we use some of this overseas aid to pay for the rebuilding of those islands?
No, we can't. We're not allowed because it's our domestic.
Then we tell ourselves by our own rules that we can't because A, it's not overseas because it's technically our territory, and these territories are too rich. They're too wealthy to fall under the rules for overseas aid. And you just go, well, yeah, surely they were too wealthy before the hurricane. But after the hurricane, when they're completely flattened, saying that they're too wealthy is perhaps stretching things a little.
Well, I would say that Dominican Republic might be all right because it's a well-known tourist attraction for English people to go to. And I'm sure
the Dominican Republic is actually a very, very poor place, but it's not a British territory.
Is it not?
No, but the things we were talking about are, you know, the British Virgin Islands, and I think particularly Barbuda.
Barbuda,
I mean, that was the one which pretty much looks as if an atom bomb has gone off.
Yeah, there was
the one
no
Boris
one
Johnson
on
went
that
over
island.
to see.
There was a time recently where there was not one human being on that island.
And I think
leveled
St. Martin. I think St. Martin also was hit very badly.
Yes.
Yep.
So there are British territories out there, and for all our overseas expenditure, we are basically saying, "Oh well, yes, but we can't spend any of that money on you. We need to find another girl band somewhere in Africa." It's farcical. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah,
I
and
mean, when they're basically saying, "Oh, our own government rules forbid it," well, fine, change them. You're the prime minister.
right.
You know,
Well,
put
yeah.
it before Parliament. I'm quite sure nobody will vote against it. Just do something.
There's a problem to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think
Enlighten me.
We're still in the European Union, which means we can't actually produce any laws like that because we have to go through the European Court of Justice first.
No, I don't think so. No, I think
to change policy like that, to change policy where we would actually be giving money, because you have to remember, because we're part of the European Union, any money that we do give out, by definition, has to go through the European Union first to be able to give out in aid.
No.
You sure? Because I'm pretty sure that's the way it's done.
No, it doesn't go through European Union funds. No, seriously, no, I'm quite sure about that.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. I'll leave it as that.
When it comes to our expenditure, we will still be giving Barbuda and St. Martin and the British Virgin Islands. We will still be giving them that money, but it will be additional expenditure above and beyond the overseas aid that we've already committed to giving, which is 0.7%. So it's just staggering.
Common sense guy, I'm getting this in the chat. Article 127.
Yeah, but basically it's a sub-article from Article 50 that should have been published with Article 50. Basically, Article 127 is to leave the EEA, which is the European Economical Area, which basically is the same as what Iceland, somewhere else, and Liechtenstein are a part of, which basically means that if we don't trigger Article 127, or from my understanding, if we don't trigger Article 127, we can't actually leave the single market, because we have to give them a year's notice for just triggering Article 127. But I am doing a different video on that, where some people believe that because we're leaving a single market, it's already included, and some people believe that we have to trigger Article 127. So
but you've lost me a bit here. I mean, we've got EFTA and we've got the EEA.
Yes, the EEA, the European Economical Area.
Strictly speaking, we are in neither of those two within the European Union.
Yeah, I understand that. But if we leave, because the EEA, which happened in 1993 when we signed up for it, is part of the Lisbon Treaty, and we have to leave the EEA as it's part of the single market.
All right. Y'all got. I'm going to just listen and learn, because I don't know much about this. This is just something similar to the Article 50. It's just another article that you need to issue saying we're out of here.
I'm not sure about that. I think it is basically the EEA. I think it is the EEA that are also basically co-signatories to the single market. So I don't think we need to leave the EEA because I don't believe we are part of it.
No, EEA are part of the single market, and we signed up to be part of everything in 1993, which included the EEA. That's the reason why Article 127 was put into the Lisbon Treaty, and that's the reason why we have to actually trigger Article 127 as well as Article 50 to leave everything. So they're saying at this moment in time. As far as my knowledge is.
Okay, I'm just looking it up here. So it says the European Economic Area includes EU countries and also Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway.
Yeah, about 28 countries in total.
Okay.
Liechtenstein.
Indeed.
It's
definitely part of the European single market.
A Knight's Tale.
Just enlighten us, Mr. Ogre.
Well, no. I was just saying it reminds me of a movie called A Knight's Tale.
Capital of Liechtenstein?
Oh. So see, I ain't looking it up. Maklavia. I don't know.
Vaduz.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known. Wouldn't have known that one.
I was going to say Bruges, but I know that's not.
Yes, but you were thinking of a certain knight in A Knight's Tale, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I don't want to ruin this because everybody wants to hear you boys talk about this whole 147.
But you are aware of the fact that that guy existed. The knight in The Knight's Tale, the name that was used, Ulrich von Liechtenstein. He existed. He truly
but he didn't
was.
do it like that guy did.
No, of course not. No,
okay.
Ulrich von there was a reason why they chose that name.
Why?
Because Ulrich von Liechtenstein truly was the most successful tournament knight ever.
Oh, I know that was a hilarious movie.
There is one tale of Ulrich von Liechtenstein where he was expected at the ball. That basically he was effectively expected to come to the grand feast after the tournament, and he didn't turn up. And he had just won the melee. And of course, the lord who was holding the tournament, who had spent all this money in order to put on this show, expected the champion to turn up. So he was in a foul mood. Until eventually one of the pages of Ulrich von Liechtenstein showed up to inform him, "My lord, I'm very sorry that my master is still held up. The blacksmiths are still trying to get the helmet off his head."
Yeah.
And remember, he was the guy who won.
Yeah. Well, did they pay that? They did something similar to that in the movie. I can't remember. That was apparently
actually, that is one of the anecdotes known of Ulrich von Liechtenstein. That basically he was that badly beaten up that basically the hinges had deformed and whatever. They couldn't get the helmet off his head.
I was thinking to trudge. What are you doing? Trudging, mate. What to trudge?
Sorry. Anyway, we were at Article 127. I've gone completely off on a tangent. Sorry about this.
No, it was my fault. I mentioned A Knight's Tale, and God rest his soul, man. You know, I was thinking David Bowie's gone too, and then that one dance scene they did the Golden Years, and their Heath Ledger just anyway. Yeah, so back to this other happy stuff. I got about Mrs. Ogre's making signs and symptoms that say I have a grand total of 15 minutes, and that's not just for the stream. That's for I got to get going. Got some couple things that the Ogre has to do today yet, and I'm going to share one of them with y'all. There's a little bird out there that's ill right now, and my Banny rooster laid 9 eggs, and I mean I don't know, maybe her size, and these are the 4 that I don't know. Usually pretty successful with the large hens. If there's 9 eggs under them, 9 will probably hatch. Doesn't mean they'll all live to be mature, but 9 will probably hatch. Well, in her case, 4 did, and the littlest one is ill. It has a disease, I believe, called I call it coccidiosis, but it's coccidiosis, and it's pneumonia for birds. So I've got to go out and see if that bird's still alive, and of course, if it's passed on. I mean, guess because of the horrible matriarchy and gender roles, guess whose job it will be to bury the little bird. Guess who was the one yesterday that got to shoot a bloody cat that was going to kill these little birds if I didn't, and buried that. I get those tasks, and it's not always.
It seems to be a miracle farm, because Common Sense Guy, did you hear that too, or was I the only one who heard the Ogre announce that the Banty rooster had laid 9 eggs?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes, I did hear that. It is miracles upon miracles.
No, because I keep thinking he's pretty loyal to his group of hens, which one is the hen that laid these eggs, Yeller I call her, and the 3 Barred Rocks. They're like his little group. They go with him every day. It's freaky with him and the whole 9 yards. They're just buddies. But since those babies has been born, and you can hear him peeping in there, and it don't matter. Other birds have babies. He doesn't really care. He's been right over there, man. He's like right around this area I'm using for a brooder, and he's crowing up a storm and doing his little leg. They like lift one leg up and put the wing down to make themselves look big and tough. Like they do a sidestep. You have to see it if you don't know roosters. They act pretty funny when they're either trying to show off for a hen or trying to intimidate something. And he's over there doing all that stuff, being a rooster, I hope they don't try to strip that away. And even though I don't have children, and look, boys, let me let y'all say this, or what I'll try to do is what I just did, wrap up like my last final word. And I am sorry it's not, but 2 hours is pretty good. You boys swing. I'm just happy I could do it. I mean, Britishers gently busting my balls over here, like, you guys, so many excuses. I live so far in the woods, y'all. And what's happened is since Labor Day is over, that's official into summer. So what the hell does the cable company care about me now? Because all the muckamucks that come up only for 3 months of the year are gone, which is large percentage of population. So now is when they do all the work that takes time. So there you go. Yeah, boys, what is this? Do y'all want to get the hell out of there or what? And do the Brexit. The Brexit.
What's the Brexit?
Yeah, they're trying to bury it.
They are definitely trying to bury
Actually,
it.
that would make quite a good joke single. Why has no one thought about that?
Because I just did.
Do the Brexit.
Yeah.
I mean, given that the British charts are always known for being quite fond of joke singles,
parodies.
Why has Do the Brexit not, or anything regarding a Brexit, not in any way surfaced in the charts?
I want to dive every time it's played. You heard it here first. Everybody knows it. I just damn thought of that. I just made it up.
But can you imagine, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Do the Brexit?
I might see what I can do. I don't have that kind of editing equipment, I don't think. I would like to be able to edit videos. I think I'm going to try to get the program you use, Britisher. I definitely want something easy, but I would love to be able to take some moving stuff and like superimpose a different head on it, or make it do the Brexit, like superimpose some stuff over top of a little something.
By the way, while we're talking about this, Common Sense Guy, have you recently observed the August channel?
Oh Lord,
I have indeed. What is he up to
now?
You
remember he was telling us that he needed to wait because sometimes you can easily lose 10 members and whatever. He could easily slip under 1,000 again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Has it occurred to you? Have you noticed by any chance, what his subscriber count is these days?
Well, the last time I checked, it was about 1,040 something. But I'm guessing it's higher than that.
I think you better check again. I think you might have somehow got the
Muslims are evil and should be banned from the United States of America. There, I'll probably get a community strike tonight.
You're still doing the stream. You're still doing the stream.
Yeah. No, well, that's planned. And I like I said, Mad Dodge.
If I may just point out that the latest reading seems to be 1,093 subscribers.
94 on mine.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's up there. I started looking through the subscriber list because, 24 hours is a long time. As I mentioned, too, for those of you that are thinking that it's going to be either I or myself on all the time, won't be. I'll have guests on for as long as they want to be on in the slots that are open, but they'll tell me how long they want to be there, and then they can do. But when that time's up, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning here, I'll get up and I'll put on like Wrecked Feminist, or 50 Shades, something like that. In fact, I've been working on some playlists of stuff that's free. It's just compiled SJW fails and all kinds of stuff like that. So, and as far as I know, folks, I would like to play some music, but one thing I'm seeing is that audio doesn't seem to translate in this medium for some reason, for whatever it is. I guess probably because people come to YouTube for the tube. And so when you don't have video incorporated with it, it kind of loses something. And I'm terrified to put up video, boys. Every time I do, it's like banned in all countries. And Google guys are knocking on my door going, "We're with Google BI. Please bend over and spread your cheeks, sir. We've noticed that you put up a unauthorized video." I'm like, no. But
not again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Not again. Not again. Bloody hell. So that's it. But I would say what I'm going to shoot for is there'll be hopefully around 14 hours of myself and guests. I know that Common Sense Guy, he's already pledged 12 hours with me. Bloody hell, mate, you're at half as much as I am. So I don't know. I really am not going to impose on you for 12 hours, though. But you got a whole slot, and for the whole time that you decide to be on, I'll be there.
I'm there for 12 hours, my friend. I said I pledged it to you, and you said I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So I'm going to start at 6 in the morning on, and then you're the reason, 6 in the morning on Saturday. which is easy to figure out. In that 11 in the morning, your time.
Oh, that's all right then.
And that, if that's cool with you, and if not, I can adjust that to make it fit with you on Saturday. And then I think, I'm Mad Dad. We'll have some other people in on that slot. But probably by the time you go off, I'll be going off too, putting on Rec Feminist, catching about 40 winks. I don't know. And maybe we will have some other people crazy enough to just be like, yeah, I'll jump on and host it the whole time. I have to know them, though. I mean, somebody's in the chat that's going to be here. Stories is, I can't remember their first name, begins with a W, and I've never been able to work it out anyhow. I don't see them. I back up in there right now. They must have stepped out. Oh, no, there they are. Welsh.
Weltschmerz.
There you go. Say that again.
I would love to have a chat with you about Brexit after the comments you left on my video. No, I'm joking. I would like to have a conversation. It's fine.
That's fine. They're going to be on. So, hey, on your 12 hours, we'll have them on, and you can have Adam. Do whatever.
Yeah, no. I don't want to have Adam. It's just different points of view. I'm quite happy explaining different points of view. That's all.
I think everybody will be civil. That's all I need. Have at it. Put up the hypothetical dupes, the metaphorical dukes. Bust the metaphorical chops. It's all good. It's all right. It'll be all right. It'll be fine. So what do you think, boys? We're not going to go much more on the article 127. Was that what it was?
That's correct. Yeah.
We're not going to go much on more on that because we will probably cover that Saturday. And because you said you had some stuff about Brexit, we did a little bit. Why don't we do some more of that Friday in our British section? I was just going to gloat very quickly and point out to the Britisher before we go to our final words that Donald Trump is rising back up in the what I would not really consider to be reliable polls. I mean, if you look at the polls before the election, they were wildly wrong. So whenever I see his approval rating, whatever they say it is, 43 or 47 now, I think it is, I kind of can question that and wonder if that's true. But he has been rebounding after poll slide. After months of declining poll numbers, the president's approval rating ticks upward. And so I thought you'd like to see that because I know you're such a staunch supporter of our president over here, bro.
Absolutely love everything the man ever did. Was right behind him right from the beginning.
You might want to step back a bit, though. You're a bit too close.
So that's it, boys. I'm getting the eyeballs. It's crazy. I'll tell you in my final word. I'll tell you what's been going on here in my final word. I'll just ruin it again for everybody. What do you say, boys? Wrap it up. I'll see y'all Friday. We'll talk some more shit.
Yeah,
thank you, gentlemen. Hammer on, common sense guy.
Well, to be honest, I don't really have too much to say today. The only thing that I can say is if you got something that's worth saying, then say it. Don't hide behind anything. If you have disagreements with people, as in different bits, as we were joking about before with stories and stuff like that, that's the best thing. That's what we do videos for, to have the conversations. Though I have to admit, I didn't actually have a conversation with stories because I literally did 3 videos today and a live stream, so I haven't really had the time today. But I'm more than happy to have actual proper discourse and everything normally, which is what we all do it for. We all do it to interact, to put our ideas out there, so then we can interact with your ideas. And that's how we make better civilizations, by discussing what our ideas are, commencing them all together, or condensing them together, sorry, and then picking out what the best parts of each individual idea is to make it actually come together. And that's the way that civilization, governments, our social status, our social constructs, and even to a little point, that's the way our social norms were made. Because though we say that it's all to do with instinct, which it is, but you have to have that interaction for it to be instinct. And that's just the way that everything is. If we don't talk about things, then we don't actually move forward. We stagnate. You have to keep on pushing forward. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies. And from the actual writer, you will think that he didn't write this. But the actual quote is, I'll start with the quote first, is nobody's going to hit harder than life. So all you can do is keep moving forward. Take the hits and keep moving forward. Because once you stop, life will not let you back up again. And that is from Rocky 6, and written by Sylvester Stallone.
You're horrible, man.
One of my favorite quotes.
I have hereby officially lost the will to live.
Ha!
I'm going to stick with the rules of the final word, but we've already both broken them. But damn, there you go, from Mouth of Rock.
But even though most people will go, "Oh, it's a Rocky film," yeah, but they are words to live by. Everybody here has gone to a point where they have been hit hard by life, whether that's a death in the family or whether that's not being able to get past a particular test. Those are all what you would classify as hits in life. And the point is of that little statement is not to let those hits to stop you from moving forward to get into where your goal is. Because once you actually stop, you won't move forward. As in, once you start taking the alcohol, once you start taking the drugs and using that as self-medication to make yourself feel better, you go down a slippery path and you don't move forward. There's so many connotations that you can actually take from that little quote. And that's the reason why I like it so much. The simplicity of the quote, but has so much connotations from it. And that's the reason why I like it so much. But anyway, I will move on.
Well, in that case, I just want to point out, of course, first that the Common Sense Guy may make videos in order to foster debate. I make them to prove everyone else wrong and myself right. I can see the ogre laughing here in the small thumbnail, but no. What I want to say in my final word is, I am amazed at the level of madness that is out there. And that is these last few weeks, and this week again in particular. I mean, you see, what I do throughout the week, I collect stories which I think may or may not, may be of interest. And then at the end of the week, I decide which ones of those stories do I want to elaborate on in order to make the week that was that I put up on my channel. But in these last recent weeks, I've really struggled to decide what I want to put up, simply because the choice was so enormous, whereby you sort of feel you're only reporting on perhaps a quarter of the stories you've got, and all the others would still be good enough to be included. Because you can't really go much over half an hour, not merely because you will not necessarily be able to hold the interest of the audience, but also because the sheer production that it would involve. If you want to make something that's an hour long or longer, and you're working off a script, it will just murder you. The amount of editing you will have to do, and also the amount of writing you'll have to do in advance of that. But the amount of stuff that is out there at the moment being produced by particularly the social justice movement, that is just beyond the pale when it comes to outright stupidity, is such that by now, even people like myself, who are just basically once a week trying to make a roundup in which they talk about various news that might be of interest, with a particular weighting towards giving prominence to things that regard social justice, right now, we seem to be reaching almost peak stupidity. I mean, I hope that it is peak stupidity, because if it goes any further, so much so that, it multiplies yet more and more, and I can only touch, 10% of the stuff, then you begin to wonder what kind of state it will leave the world in. Not because I can't report on it, but just because simply, if we are overwhelmed by that much nonsense, then at some point we'll reach a point where society won't be able to cope anymore. So yeah, I just feel that all the people who are talking of they're seeing the end of this, that it has peaked, that now a resistance to it is growing and society is having enough of it, I'm not sure. I think we're still completely spiraling out of control. So on that happy note, I'll hand over to the ogre and let him finish the stream for us.
Oh, thank you so much. I just did a bong swat so huge, I'm not sure I'll take another breath. Nope, there it was. Hello. Hang on. All right.
I guess this is I guess the stuff that is we're told is good for you and is relaxing, as we can see in the yoga's face at the moment.
No, well, different things can happen, and it's very polleny outside. I took a really big hit. One thing for sure, it's an expectorant, Brett. And so I'll say it this way: when you use an expectorant, not a something that's an anti, not an antihistamine, but a decongestant. Decongestant, like, makes you dry and get crusty, dehydrates you. And an expectorant makes you get it out. And so, yes, sometimes marijuana can work as an expectorant. You take too big a hit. And the description people usually use is it expands in your lungs. But, of course, the smoke isn't really expanding. You just feel that incredible amount of smoke in your lungs and, make you cough. But, yeah, you're right. You're very good point. It's very good for your health. But here's the reason I'm going to split. I'm going to go take care of these little birds. I can't tell you. I would like to tell you that this little baby is the one that, is ill. Well, not because I'd like to tell you it was ill, of course, but because I'd like to be able to tell you which one it is. I know it's not this one because that very blonde colored one's still there, but this one's dark also. The one that's ill is a little dark, but you can see these little peepers. It's incredible what happens, folks. After the gestation period, after when they're incubating under the mother, she's turning them, of course, keeping them at a constant temperature and sitting on them the whole time. 28 days, 27 days, they hatch out. They can go 3 days without food or water as soon as they hatch, because that whole time they've, of course, been drinking that yolk sac. That's like their nourishment for that period of time. But it is incredible to me when they come out. It's one of two things, but it's usually the first. A very independent little creature that learns the things that it doesn't know from its mother so quickly. It's nearly staggering. It really is. I mean, they go from, the mother will make these different sounds like like that, and they'll pick the food and spit it back out. And when they're making that particular clucking sound, that is their language to the chicks. This is food. She has another, like a cackle. I'm not even kidding. I know that probably sounds funny. It was like she hits that little thing at the end, and that's telling them, don't eat that, don't go near that. And she starts that right away. So now, after just a couple, 3 days out of the egg, you see these little creatures so incredibly independent. But then in a situation like this, this one, which I will, if the bird dies, it would have been 8, I guess. So, because I'm going to go up in numbers. I have some birds that are numbered. But when they come to this point and they get something like this avian pneumonia, coccidiosis, for lack of a better way to say it, that's the redneck way to say it. They need a lot of help. You have to keep an eye on them, and it's been a couple hours since I've actually had my eye on this poor little helpless guy out there. So yeah, no matter what, anybody, I would say. Now, there's some people out there that are psychopaths and sociopaths, but I would say no matter who you are, you couldn't help but root for the little blighter. And I want to remember through this, I hope, and I hope we all will, that sometimes people could also say don't root for the underdog because the underdog sucks or whatever. But yeah, maybe root for the underdog once in a while. And if possible, give them a hand up. It goes for me. This is basically who I'm speaking to at this point. I think if I could remember that, the world would be a better place. So be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Be good to little chickens. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because you know what I'm going to say, folks? A moment you don't think, at the time you think not, when you don't imagine it could happen, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and your itty-bitty chicken you watch hatch out of the egg will depart from you.